What is your universal basic income plan? How much do you want to give people?
$1,000 a month.
Every American adult gets $1,000 a month starting at age 18, and that would be a game changer for tens of millions of American families, because we know 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 57% can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. And what I'm telling people is, look, we have the money. Like, our economy is up to $20 trillion, up $5 trillion in the last 12 years alone. We're the richest, most advanced economy in the history of the world. We can easily afford $1,000 a month dividend.
You want to give me
for every American
$1,000
adult.
a month?
Yeah.
Until I die?
Until
Yes.
he's 64, right?
Well, yeah, it's until you die, but if you have Social Security, then it overlaps. You don't get both. So the solution I'm proposing, and anyone who's heard about my campaign knows this, I'm proposing that we declare a dividend of $1,000 a month for every American adult starting at age 18.
That's the universal basic income
Yes,
that they're proposing.
the universal basic income, which I've rebranded the freedom dividend because it tests better with more Americans with the word freedom in it. And so,
What will that do?
Yeah, because a lot of us have never achieved true liberation in this country.
yeah, true. I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's one reason why Martin Luther King championed this plan in principle in 1967, the year before he was assassinated. He called it the guaranteed minimum income. Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of the country. This is a very American idea. So it seems far out to us now that, hey, we should just have a dividend where everyone gets $1,000 a month. But we've been talking about this for decades, and it came this close to being law in 1971. It actually passed the House of Representatives twice under Richard Nixon. Milton Friedman and 1,000 economists signed a study saying this would be great for America. And then one state has had a dividend for 37 years where everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked.
What state is that?
That's Alaska.
Really?
Yeah, you go to Alaska right now, you live there for a year, and everyone in your family gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year from the petroleum dividend. It was passed 37 years ago by a Republican governor, and Alaska's a deep red state. This Republican governor shows up, 1982, and he's like, hey, there's a lot of oil money. Who would you rather get it? The government, who's just going to screw it up, or you, the Alaskan people? And then the Alaskans said, us, please. And he's like, I thought you'd say that. And so then they passed this dividend, and now it's wildly popular, has created thousands of jobs, has improved children's health, has a decreased income inequality. And what I'm going around the country saying is, look, what Alaska is doing with oil money, we can do for the entire country with technology money.
I'm really looking at the universal basic income and seeing how that could be a tool to help deal with a lot of these poverty-stricken communities and people who've been struggling and still unable to dig themselves out of a hole there, and seeing how that potentially could replace a lot of the bureaucracy, a lot of the money that we're spending on bureaucracy and a lot of social welfare programs, perhaps to both save money and to provide support directly to people who need it. So I think that's an option that we've got to consider. It's not simple, and so I'm doing the research and figuring out how exactly that would work and how exactly we'd pay for it. But we also have to look at affordable housing. I think not accepting the fact that the high cost of housing is what it is not the solution. There's a lot of money that goes into our housing and urban development department, but is it really having the effect that we need it to have to make it so that, you know, whether it's cops or teachers or firefighters, people who are working in these public service jobs are able to afford to live in the communities where they're working.
The next question comes from Anjali Parorthar, a business manager from Seattle. Anjali.
Thank you for this opportunity. You have very effectively pinpointed job automation as a key pivot in our near future, and your understanding of the psychological implications of losing your work identity are on point. But how do you tactically propose we avert an unemployment crisis, and how will you shepherd our country's people through this change?
Well, thanks for the question. It's so important. As you know, automation is transforming our economy, and we can't pretend that it can just be stopped or reversed. I think part of the core falsehood of the current White House and the campaign that got us here was the idea that we could somehow turn back the clock. I don't think you can ever have an honest politics that revolves around the word again. So it's not about stopping or reversing technology. It is about making sure that the tectonic social and economic changes that it could drive are changes that can actually work for us, because the pace of change is only going to accelerate. So you mentioned the word tactical, and some of these things are very technical and near to the ground. Making sure, for example, that the United States is keeping pace with our competitors like China when it comes to the investments we're making in AI and automation, so that when those leaps and bounds are made, hopefully they're made in and by our country. But it also rises, I think, to a higher level, which is how do we make sure that when those job transitions happen, and there's just going to be more of them, our generation is likely to change careers more frequently than our parents changed job titles. And what we've got to do in that environment is make it less of a disruptive event in your entire life when those changes occur. It's why we need portable benefits. It's why the conversation about Medicare for all is so important. That's why we might even need to look at guaranteed income for working people as a policy that will help smooth the edges of that.
Anybody? Oh my God! All right. All right. What you got?
All right. So I know you've expressed support for universal basic income in the past in your interviews, but there's this guy Andrew Yang that wants to give everybody $1,000 a month with a VAT tax. And I think to win the Democratic primary, you got to do that. You got to give everybody $1,000.
I got a better idea.
You won't do it?
Nope. Sorry, you came all the way from Alabama. All right, here's the better idea. Okay. Okay. Here's the better idea. I understand that idea. I have a better idea. And the better idea, I think, is that in a nation in which there is so much work to be done, just think about it. You got an infrastructure which is crumbling. We can put millions of people to work doing that. Transforming our energy system in terms of weatherizing homes all over this country, building a more efficient energy transportation system, putting more money into wind and solar and other sustainable technologies. We can create millions of jobs doing that. Think about daycare. You want a world-class child care center? You need well-educated, well-trained, well-paid child care workers. We need many of them. We need more doctors in rural areas and in urban areas. We need more nurses. We have a dental crisis all over this country. We need to train dentists and get them out there. We need more social workers. You want to reform our criminal justice system? Well, you're going to need people to start working with prisoners. You want kids not dropping out of high school? You're going to need mentors working with them. There is an enormous amount of work to be done. And what we believe in is guaranteeing a job in this country to anybody who is prepared to work. I think that's the better approach. Okay?
So because Silicon Valley tends to be more socially responsible than Wall Street, although they're just as greedy in terms of making the bottom line, they have come up with an idea for a guaranteed annual wage. So because they're worried there's going to be so many middle-class jobs displaced, that's the only thing that can be done. And so I spoke, and I complimented them on their social consciousness. I wasn't being a wise guy. But I said, guys, you're missing the point. That's not how America's built. And I quoted my dad. I know everybody kidding me in the White House, always quoting my dad or my dad, a graceful high school educated guy. When he moved down from Scranton, Pennsylvania, because there was no work, and Barack made me sound like I climbed out of a coal mine with a lunch bucket in my hand. You know, Joe from Hardscrapple, Scranton, you know. Well, my dad was a white-collar worker, a salesperson, but there was nothing to sell after coal died. And we moved to Delaware where there were actually good jobs. And every time someone would lose a job, my dad would say, you know, Joey, my word to this, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. That's what it's about. Dignity.